Welcome to Discovering. Tonight we're on the river for some fall brook trout fishing.
Spawning colors, just look at that.
And a look at some of the whitetail deer presentations at the October NRC meeting, and an update from the DNR on wolf and moose surveys.
We're going to have these cameras deployed for the next 3 years.
So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
I don't think I would be lying if I said in the last 20 years I've caught 10,000 brook trout here. There he is, right there. There he is. Oh! Royal Coachman streamer. Oh, there's these little corner little riffles like that. If they're feeding, that water's only a few inches deep, and they're looking for groceries. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. I've been fishing trout. I'm 71 years old, and I've probably been fishing them for 61 of the 71, maybe even more, but I was born very young and don't remember it all. But I've spent pretty much my whole life, 99% of my fishing has been trout fishing, yes. There's one. Since I retired 7 years ago, I try to get out at least once a week, you know. And the grandkids came along and they put a, I had to struggle for my once a week, but now it's pretty easy. And the wife, God love her, you know, after 40 years, she knows, you know, that once a week it's Grandpa's Day on the creek. There you go. Come on, there we go. Nice fish. Go away. There we go. Oh, missed him. The sure way to get a hit is take your eye off the fly. Never fails. There's something about being alone on the creek by yourself, that you're all by yourself. You and that little fly and that trout. And he's got a zillion things to eat, and you get him to try to eat your fly. You know, it's always fascinating. That's a keeper. One for the grandkids. A little over 10 inches. Probably, I wouldn't be afraid to say maybe a 4-year-old fish, maybe 5. But when I'm on the creek, it's me. And there's just something about it. You know, it's tough to explain. Ooh, there's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, he's gone. That was a good one. The big ones always get away. That was a nice fish. There we go. Under my tree again, Kristen. Brook trout. Probably a 3-year-old fish. In our area here, the brook trout will average lifespan 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And it takes about 3 years for them to get to be 8 inches long, which is the legal size in some waters. In this particular water here, the middle branch of the Ontonagon, it's a 10-inch brook trout size limit. And having worked with fish management for over 30 years, I would think I can safely say that in this particular body of water, probably 90% of the fish are under the 10-inch size limit. But it's still an action creek, and I have caught a lot of nice trout out of this creek over the last 50 or 60 years. So I keep coming back. There we go. Little fat guy. How pretty though. Spawning colors. Just look at that. They'll spawn in October, November, once the water temperature gets below about 50 degrees. Some females will lay eggs the first year, when they're a year old. Rule of thumb is second season. And the boys about the same. The first year, the female may drop 100 eggs, 150, something like that. The third or fourth year, they might be up to 300 to 500 eggs or something like that. And if you think about it, let's say this female drops over the course of her life 700 or 800 eggs. Just pick a number like that. Only one of those eggs has to make it to adulthood to replace her. The eggs will incubate for about 100 days. And then they'll start hatching in the fry. They'll find some little cover and stuff like that. They eat off the egg yolk a little bit. And then they kind of start dispersing. And in the first year, they're a couple inches long. If you catch a brook trout 3 inches long now, you know darn well it hatched this spring. This was an egg last fall. Second year about 6, the third year about 8. If you get one out of the creek here 10 inches long, he's probably 6, maybe 7 years old. What this is here, this is a dry fly. This fly will float. This fly sinks. So what I'm going to do is tie this on here. And this is an upstream type of fishing, because if the fish are going after dry flies or floating bugs, they'll hit this, and yet if they're nymphing, they'll go after this. So it's kind of interesting to see what they hit, which one they hit. Whoop, there we go. Now, what did it hit? It's just a little fish, but it hit the dry fly. It's a very little, that's last fall's egg. I just saw one rise up there. There we go. It's a nice fish too. That might be Grandpa's. There we go. Pretty close, about 10.5 inches. We must caught, what, 30, 35 fish. I don't think I'd be lying, would I? Because I know I've probably caught 10 right down here with the dry fly. If not 10, pretty doggone close. So, yeah, that's what it's all about. But this, 60 years, I never get tired of it here.
The Michigan Natural Resources Commission held its monthly meeting on October 10th here in the UP. and most of the presentations given focused on whitetail deer.
Today's agenda is specifically related to deer hunting in the Upper Peninsula and some key factors associated with that. When it comes to fish and game, wildlife management in general is dominated by deer hunting, and in the Upper Peninsula, deer hunting is the number one issue by far that we're facing. There are others, don't get me wrong. The Wildlife Division deals with a lot of species other than deer, and then there's the fisheries biologist working on the fishing side of things. But deer hunting in the Upper Peninsula is a key recreation, key economic driver. We know that, and we're working hard to do our best to improve the herd to the extent we can in the short term, and also start thinking long term, especially in the habitat area.
Dr. Gary Roloff of MSU presented on deer habitat, nutrition, and northern hardwoods to emphasize that we need to also look at summer and fall nutrition for whitetail deer and not just winter habitat.
What I tried to do with my presentation is maybe broaden our perspective of the year and maybe identify a gap in our thinking about summer and fall nutrition. And research is unequivocally showing that the fall nutrition of deer, so how deer eat during summer and fall as they head into winter, is absolutely critical for their survival and for the ability of does to produce fawns the following year. So the work that Dr. Walters and I are doing is just kind of trying to tie all that together in one of the major forest types in Michigan. It covers about 5 million acres, the northern hardwood type, and link it to deer population dynamics.
Another presentation was given by Dr. Gerald Ballant of Michigan State University on the Predator Prey project that took place from 2009 to 2020. According to their study, they feel that wolves don't have a significant impact on the deer population.
Talking about the role of predation, emphasizing wolves as that's some hot topic issue, and there's a lot of interest surrounding the role of wolf predation on whitetail deer. And what we found, taking us through each sex and age classes, for fawns, wolves were a minor predator of whitetail deer fawns, killing about 3.5% of the 363 fawns that we had monitored and estimated cause of death. Turning it to adult females or does, we monitored 423 of these does over the course of the studies. And what we found is that there was higher predation rates of adult females by wolves. In fact, about 8.6% of the does we monitored were killed by wolves. However, when we looked at the timing of these mortalities, what we found was that most of them occurred from March to May. And this we call the late spring bottleneck, where we have reduced forage. Deer in much of the Upper Peninsula are yarded, browses of poor quality food. So the does become in poor condition is what it amounts to. And what we found is of those wolf predations, about half of those deer they killed were basically in starvation mode. And so were unlikely to survive to the next summer. And so if we adjust that 8.6% and think about half of it, it's about 4.3, 4.5% of the does were killed by wolves that would otherwise may have made it to summer. Turning it towards adult males or our bucks, we monitor 96 of those, and the dominant form of mortality, as you would expect, was hunter-harvest. It was about 82% of the bucks killed were killed by hunters. Another 5% were killed by humans in other forms, mainly car collisions, and 13.3% were killed by wolves.
I had a lot more questions for Dr. Ballant, but only had a few minutes with him. If you Google Michigan Predator Prey Survey, you can find all the reports from that study. At the NRC meeting, DNR Wildlife Research Specialist Tyler Petrulia gave us an update on the wolf abundance survey.
In 2023, we started our full camera deployment for the UP, where we deployed just over 1,200 cameras. And so those cameras have been out working the last year. We've left them out in the field for a full year, Battery life is estimated about 14 months we get out of those cameras.
The DNR just finished swapping SD cards and batteries out, and these cameras will remain afield for the next 3 years.
That's resulted in just probably somewhere around 6 million images. We haven't gotten them all in yet, but now we go through the heavy task of processing all those photos. And so we have the help of computer vision or artificial intelligence to go through a lot of those photos and filter out the blanks and the vehicles and the humans. Those images are deleted. So that we don't keep any of that information. We're really just interested in the wildlife. And then we have our staff go through, or Michigan State University staff go through and look for differentiating between wolves and coyotes, just to make sure that we have an accurate detection history on where we're seeing wolves across the UP. We will be analyzing photos all winter, and we expect that probably late spring or summer we'll actually have our first abundance estimate for UP-wide wolf abundance. Just over 75% of our cameras are remaining functional. We have about 1% that are intentionally damaged, so they're smashed or shot at. We have maybe another 4% that are misdirected intentionally by people. About 3% of those are misdirected by black bears. They like to mess with the cameras and turn them away. Then we have, another 5% that have software or hardware failure. And we hope that that number stolen too will decline over time as people understand we're not interested in getting photos of them or what they're doing. Those photos are deleted. And we really just want to make sure that we can get a better handle on monitoring our wildlife populations and transitioning to using this new technique. It's a lot of time and effort for biologists to be in the field, driving thousands and thousands of miles to track wolves using our winter wolf track survey. And so this camera survey technique is a really novel way for us to visit a site, deploy a camera, have that camera work all year for us every day, and then we can go collect the information that it gathered throughout the year.
The Michigan DNR is launching a new moose survey this winter.
We have support and through a collaborative work with the Keweenaw Bay Indian Community, Michigan DNR, and Northern Michigan University to begin GPS collaring moose in the Western Upper Peninsula core moose range. So we expect the moose capture work to happen sometime in late January or early February. And the plan is to collar about 20 animals this first year and then collar animals in subsequent years like 2026 to increase our sample size. And really the goal of the project is to better understand what's limiting the factors, or what are the limiting factors that are influencing our moose population in the Western UP. We saw relatively good growth in the early 2000s through the 90s, where we were growing at about 10% annually. And sometime around 2010, we saw that population kind of stagnate. And right now, the last 10 years, we've been sitting right around 500 moose in our core range, and that population's been growing at less than 1% annually. And so there's a lot of interest in better understanding what are the main factors that are limiting that population growth when we expect that there is good habitat there and we should be able to support greater moose densities.
The trail cameras out for the Wolf Abundance Project can also help with moose population estimates across the rest of the UP.
So outside the core range, we don't have a lot of information on what's going on with our moose population, and that's where the Wolf Abundance Project can really help supplement that information. Because we have those 1,200 cameras across the UP, we're already getting some really, really cool photos of moose all across the UP, especially a small population that's been known for a while around like McFarland area south of Gwinn, also out by Ontonagon and the East UP too, obviously. So even though the moose survey that we plan to run with this new project is going to be focused on the Western UP, we can gain a lot of information from those Wolf Abundance cameras on what's going on with moose across the UP.
And from my interview with Dr. Gerald Ballant, it sounds like these cameras could also help them track predation in deer wintering complexes.
And one of the things that we'll be doing with that information is the very question you asked. We'll be looking at deer use of these deer wintering complexes and how predators, both wolves and coyotes, are using this in response to deer use of those same areas.
With hunter trail cameras out in full force across the peninsula, I've been seeing more people posting moose photos on social media.
And when they report that to us, that's just more information to help us better understand what's going on with the moose population UP-wide.
And do you encourage the public to send you those photos and stuff?
Absolutely. If they go to our wildlife observation form, they can actually submit information through our Eyes in the Field app. And they can post a photo on where they actually got a photo of that moose. And that really helps us understand too if it's just bull moose that are wandering, around during the rut, or is it that they actually have calf that has a cow, and so we have reproduction, and maybe there's a resident moose in their area outside of what we consider the core range.
I'm sure many of us are eagerly awaiting the results of the first year of photo gathering from those trail cameras to get a better understanding of wolf and other wildlife populations and distribution across the UP. That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.